You're talking to somebody you barely even know, and somehow you've already told them about your ex, your family problems, maybe even that one thing you promised yourself you'd never talk about again. You didn't sit there planning to say any of it. It just slipped out. And now you're sitting there acting normal, smiling like nothing happened, while inside you feel completely exposed. Most people know that feeling, but the thing that bothers me is how people usually describe this. They talk about oversharing like it's just some awkward personality trait, like the person doing it simply needs better self-control. But that way of looking at it misses the entire point, because oversharing is not really about talking too much. It's about feeling safe. Think about it for a second. When you actually feel emotionally safe around somebody, you don't feel this pressure to unload everything immediately. You can slow down. You can let the connection build over time. But when your nervous system doesn't believe that safety will last, it reacts fast. It tries to create closeness immediately. It pushes everything out at once, just to see who stays. That's not really a communication habit. It's a survival response pretending to be one. And honestly, a lot of this starts way earlier in life than people think. If you grew up in a home where your emotions were ignored, or only noticed when they became intense and dramatic, your brain learned something from that. It learned that smaller feelings don't get attention. Only the painful or explosive emotions get a reaction. So you started leading with the deeper stuff. Not because you wanted attention, because that was the only thing people ever responded to. And that pattern doesn't magically disappear just because you got older and moved into your own place. But this is where things get even more interesting, because there's another side to this that almost nobody mentions. A lot of oversharing is really the fear of being misunderstood, just wearing a different mask. If you've spent most of your life feeling like people never fully understand you, like something always gets lost when you try to explain yourself, you start giving people too much context up front. You explain everything. You hand them the full story before they even ask for it. Because somewhere in your head you're thinking, if I can just explain myself clearly enough this time, maybe somebody will finally understand me completely. That's not somebody being too much. That's somebody who spent years feeling misunderstood, and they're tired of carrying it. And honestly, it wears you down. There's this cycle that keeps happening. You overshare. Right after that, you feel exposed. Then the shame shows up. You pull away. You tell yourself you're never going to do it again. But then you meet somebody who feels even a little warm or emotionally safe, and suddenly everything spills out again. Every single time. But this is the part I really want you to hear, and I mean it. The same part of you that overshares is usually the part that's the most emotionally aware person in the room. You notice little things most people miss. You can feel when somebody's energy changes, even if they swear nothing's wrong. You remember tiny details people casually mention and forget 5 minutes later. You care about people deeply, sometimes to the point where it honestly becomes exhausting. And that part of you is not disconnected from the oversharing. It comes from the exact same place. It's just a trait that starts to twist a little when there's nowhere safe for it to go. And honestly, we should probably talk about the culture we're living in too. Because America sends people some really confusing messages about this stuff. On one side, everybody talks about vulnerability now. Therapy language is everywhere. Being authentic has basically become an identity for some people. But the second somebody becomes truly honest, suddenly it's too emotional, too intense, too much oversharing. Society tells people to open up, then judges them the moment they actually do it. That's not a personal failure. That's a cultural contradiction. And maybe you know this feeling too. It's late at night. You're laying in bed, staring into the dark. And your brain keeps replaying something you said earlier, over and over, almost word for word. You can't even fully explain why it's bothering you this much, but it is. And somehow, You're the only person still carrying it around at 2 in the morning. But sometimes, and I mean this carefully, that pattern is trying to tell you something. Maybe there's grief you never fully processed. Maybe there's anxiety sitting underneath everything that you still haven't been able to name. Maybe there's a kind of loneliness that stays with you, even when other people are around. Not every time, but sometimes it's worth paying attention to. And honestly, the better question probably isn't, why do I overshare? The better question is, who taught you that vulnerability needed to happen fast, or it wouldn't happen at all? You're not damaged. You're not some overwhelming person people can't handle. Your nervous system simply learned a certain way to reach for connection, and it's doing the best it can with what it learned. And the fact that you're even aware of this pattern already says a lot, because that means you're already more self-aware than the version of yourself who never noticed it before. Usually, the people who struggle with this are the same people with incredibly deep inner worlds. Thoughtful people, loyal people, the kind of friend who genuinely shows up when somebody needs them. Those people do not need to be repaired. They need to finally experience enough safety to slow themselves down. Psychologists sometimes describe this as having porous boundaries. It's not a disorder, and it's not some permanent identity. It's just a behavioral pattern. And patterns can change, so leave a comment. Are you watching this because you see yourself in it, or because you're trying to understand somebody else better? Honestly, I'd really like to know, and if this kind of content feels different to you, the honest kind, not the polished fake version, subscribe. Seriously, I think you'll feel understood here. Next time, I want to talk about a behavior that most people never notice in themselves, even though everybody around them can see it clearly. It's subtle, but it affects almost every part of their life. I'll see you in the next one.